What is the best exercise? As physios, this is probably the question that we get asked the most, especially if you are working in the online sphere where people have got a little bit more access to you than perhaps a private clinic or the NHS, especially the NHS. Anyway, that's the question that we often get asked the most is, what's the best exercise for my knee pain? What's the best exercise for my hip? I've got an ankle sprain. What's the best exercise for my ankle? They're just looking for that one quick fix. But in today's video, we are going to be discussing and hopefully educating you in terms of why this is the wrong question to be asking. But before we jump straight into the video, let's do a bit of a reintroduction, because if you look at the channel, there's hardly any videos. And I did say to myself that I was gonna put a little bit more attention and focus into long form content. Short form side of things in terms of Instagram and TikTok, my handles are in the description. It's simply just at Kratos Physio. The problem with short form content, and what I'm really struggling with at the moment, is there's so much nuances to physiotherapy, to injuries, to coaching, to performance, to being able to improve and get back to your best. And unfortunately with short form media and content now, we have got TikTok brains. I think people have got the attention span of 3 or 4 seconds, and I am getting sick and tired of trying to grab someone's attention within that just to help them and listen, everything. And also with short form content, everyone just simply just copies each other. Okay, so hopefully within the long form side of things, we are going to be, like I said, putting a little bit more attention into it. We've got a light, a fancy light behind here. We've got a whiteboard, even though I'm about 6'7", so the whiteboard's about normal height. Nah, I'm average height for a male, unfortunately, but yeah, I've gone and bought a shorter whiteboard. Didn't think about measuring it out beforehand, but we'll jump straight into today's video, and we are going to be talking about why this is the wrong question to be asking. Okay, so in topics we are going to be discussing exercise selection. So we're not going to be talking about what is the best exercise, but hopefully you'll have a bit of a better understanding of terms of exercise selection. We're going to be talking about progression, so how you can actually progress through the stages of your rehab. We're going to be talking about consistency and the importance of consistency, and how I can give you an A-star rehab plan, which includes A-star exercises. But if you actually don't follow it and you don't stick to the structure and be consistent with it, it doesn't matter, you're never going to improve. We're going to be talking about loading, various different loading strategies, etc., and how that is a bit more important to be able to actually see those positive adaptations to tissue that we're looking for, rather than the best exercise, and patience while you need it. So if you are struggling with an injury, and you feel like you're putting all this hard work in and you're getting absolutely nowhere, and you feel like that hard work does warrant the results, okay, this probably sounds like you. You're probably spending countless hours doom scrolling on short form media, whether that is following my own content or other people's content out there, saving all these exercises. And you've probably got this folder on your phone which just gathers dust. And you are jumping from one exercise to another, hoping that it works, and actually not giving it enough time to see results. You do it and you think, oh gosh, I felt something okay. And then you do it for another week and poof, no results. So that probably sounds like you, okay? And the biggest misconception that comes with injury rehab is thinking that exercises are the things that heal everything. And yes, exercises obviously play a massive part of anyone's injury rehab. In order for us to actually see positive adaptations to tissue and actually increase tissue capacity, so we are a little bit more resilient to injuries occurring and our risk of injury comes down, we obviously need exercise. We need to be able to stress our tissues in order to improve their capacity, something that we will touch later on in this video. But the biggest misconception is thinking just one exercise or a couple of exercises fixes everything, and completely neglecting everything that we just spoke about in terms of consistency, progressive overload, graded exposure, etc., etc. So, number 2, the first point that we're going to be talking about is more exercises doesn't always equal better rehab. So, 2 examples. We've got person A, person B. Person A, very upset, very frustrated. They feel like they're doing everything. They're doing every exercise under the sun. Like I just explained, they're probably going on Instagram. One physio is telling them to do this. One physio is telling them to do that. Oh, avoid these. Avoid doing your knees over toes, etc. We've all heard it. Okay, they are doing monster walks, clamshells, banded walks, hip airplanes, glute bridges, deadlifts, step ups, split squats, lunges. They're doing everything under the sun, but they're still in pain because what they are not doing is what person B is focusing on. Progressive overload, graded exposure, being patient and sticking with the same exercises and looking to progressively overload them over time. Putting stress on the injured and irritated tissue in order for it to increase tissue capacity. They're not jumping from exercise here, there, and everything. They're not doing exercises on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all throughout the week, and then going out for a run on the weekend because their pain is reduced and then flaring up. They are sticking to a consistent schedule, okay? So as you can see, more exercises doesn't always equal better rehab. Someone who is simply just progressively overloading 3 key main exercises or 4 throughout the week, integrating it within their training, usually will see better results. 3 months later, running pain-free, whilst the individual who is jumping from exercise here and there is still most likely going to be in pain because they're not being consistent with a structured program. And another thing about how more exercises doesn't always mean better rehab. If we think about a GPS and you're wanting to go from, so for example, I'm from down south. I currently live just outside of Manchester in the Peak District. And if I want to go back home, which is, I would say, sunny Suffolk, if I want to go back to Suffolk and to the coast to see my family, I'll put into my phone, I'll use Apple Maps, and look at the GPS. It's going to probably give me 3 or 4 different routes to get home. Some of them may be quicker, some of them may be longer, some of them might divert around and focus and stick on the roads that I want to drive on. The bottom line of it is going to get me to my destination, whether I get there in 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, or hopefully not 1 month driving from outside Manchester to Suffolk. But it doesn't matter what time we get there, as long as I am getting there, okay? And it doesn't matter the method of or mode of transport. I might drive, might get a train, might walk if I'm doing a stupid challenge. But what I'm trying to say is there are multiple directions in order for us to be able to travel. It's that famous quote. Whenever I do post any videos to Instagram, I always talk and explain how there are multiple roads that lead to Rome, okay? A lot of exercises actually overlap as well. So if we look here, the person A, okay, I try to get back into screen, monster walks, clamshells, banded walks. They're working on lateral hip strength, overlapping. Hip airplanes, glute bridges, still working on that hip mobility, hip stability, quite overlapping. A deadlift, step up, split squats, lunges, they have that overlap sort of format there to them as well. So again, like I said, it doesn't matter how many exercises you're doing. And a lot of the time as well, if you're doing too many exercises, you are exposing those irritated tissues to just too much load, especially if you are repeating them every single day of the week. Okay, we need the rest. We are going to be talking about a few other things as we progress through the video. So rather than asking yourself, or me and other physios, what is the best exercise for knee pain, I'm going to give you the secret sauce, and that is the framework that actually works in order for us to be able to see the adaptation that we are looking for to the irritated tissue, for it to become more resilient and obviously reduce your injury risk and get you feeling more bulletproof. It's not the exercise, it's what you do after that counts. So in the video, we're going to be talking about exercise selection, then we're going to be talking about progression, talking about consistency, load exposure, and patience. Exactly what I spoke about in the introduction section, but we are going to be talking about all of these and how all of this makes up the framework that you should be basing your rehab on, rather than just trying to seek what the best exercises are. So with that framework in mind, the first one that we are going to be talking about is exercise selection. Now, I don't want to confuse things. The whole premise of this video is explaining how there are no perfect exercises, and I don't want you to be wasting your time and energy hopping from these different exercises here and there, going through your save folder that's got a lot of dust on Instagram. Still save my exercises though on Instagram. It helps out with the algorithm. But rather than hopping from exercise and programs here and there and everything, trying to find the perfect exercise, okay, exercises and exercise selection is extremely important, okay? Don't just leave it to rest and wait. We need to increase tissue capacity. We need to place stress onto the irritated tissue in order to see the positive adaptations. So the goal of any rehab is finding exercises that are good enough. Good enough is usually enough, okay? They need to be safe, they need to be effective and suitable for you, okay? For example, if I have Susan down the road, okay, and she has sprained her ankle, I'm probably not going to give her the same exact exercises or rehab plan that I'm going to give a semi-professional footballer who's got a nasty complex lateral ankle sprain and we need to get him back to changes of direction, okay? Just drop the shoulder there, and that's with a dodgy knee. If you didn't see me, I was about to go sprint. I would have been miles away, so keep up. Nah, just messing around. So, like I said in the previous clip, there are many roads that lead to Rome. Lead to Rome. Did I say that? Rome or Loam? I don't know why I just said that. I don't even know what this is. It's supposed to be circles, supposed to be a target. Don't waste your time of your rehab trying to focus on the perfect exercise. Hitting the board is usually good enough. And if we are consistent with it, which we are going to be talking about in the next little parts of the framework, if we are consistent with it, we will get to your end goal. So the next part of the framework that we need to focus on and talk about is progression, okay? The only way that we are going to increase the tissue capacity of the irritated area is through progressing complexity of exercises, gradually exposing your body to different demands, okay? That can come through time under tension. It could come through increasing weight. It could come from load management by increasing the load throughout the week rather than just doing 3 sessions. Are we doing 4 sessions? It could be increasing time as you're running, so time on feet. It could be increasing the intervals of your sessions. It could be exposing yourself, not just increasing the weight, but running a 3K here, and then 5K, and then exposing yourself to sprinting, changes of directions, all depending obviously on the injury that we are getting you, or rehabbing you, and obviously the phase of rehab we're in. But an analogy that I like to use, okay? If the stress never changes, the adaptation never changes, okay? Your body, it adapts to increasing demands, okay? Rather than just focusing on doing the same exercise forever and hoping for different results, we need to be progressing, okay, over the weeks. However, we do need to earn the right to progress, okay? Rather than just saying, okay, I did 10 kilograms this week, I'm gonna be going on to 20 kilograms next week, okay? We have to earn the right to be able to go through the different phases of a rehab. So we have to earn the right to be able to do slow, heavy, controlled work before we can start introducing like those dynamic, heavier, in more intense works, okay, and movements. Okay, so if we do want to become stronger, more resilient and pain-free, stop just focusing on doing the same exercise for 12 weeks. An example I would like to use, okay, I've heard some horror stories, okay, work with my clients, but one lad in particular, he was a footballer. He was struggling with patella tendon. He went to see his NHS physio and they told him, okay, do these 3 exercises for 12 weeks. They didn't tell him how to progress the exercises. And they were just simple exercises, okay, so like a banded Spanish squat, okay. Is that going to be enough to being able to allow your tendon, okay, to handle those sudden changes of movement, to be able to stabilize yourself and kick and through the motion of football, okay? It's not going to be able to handle or expose your patella tendon to jumping up, heading for the ball and landing, okay, repetitively for 90 minutes. Some good exercises to include, but we need to be progressing and gradually exposing you to higher demands as we go through the rehab plan, okay? So that's number one thing, okay? Exercises are good, but we need to make sure that we are progressing the exercises over time. And before we continue with the framework, let's use now as a really perfect time to do a sponsored segment, okay? So I'm not gonna be doing and plugging any brands that I don't wanna work with, okay? So we'll plug myself. So if you are keen or interested to work with myself on a one-to-one basis, head to the description box. You'll be able to send me an inquiry form. I'll send you a personal video, what the service looks like in terms of my one-to-one online rehab and coaching service and how we can work with each other on an online basis. And if you are looking for ready-made programs, again, follow that description box. It'll take you to ready-made programs such as a hip program, shoulder program, lower body one, and a mobility guide. Anyway, back to the video. So of that framework, 6, consistency. I said earlier on, okay, I would rather someone be working away with a C star or C graded rehab plan, but being consistent with it, than focusing on trying to achieve a star graded rehab plan and then not being consistent with it, okay? this is never going to get you to your goals, okay? So exercise selection is important. Progressing over time is important, but none of those two things will work if you're not being consistent, okay? So a consistent approach, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, okay? It could just be a handful of exercises, okay? Rather than trying to find the best and the perfect exercise. But that's what consistency looks like. It's not, okay? Doing a different exercise on Monday, starting a new plan on Wednesday, doing a different exercise on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday you're too tired to do anything. That's an inconsistent approach, okay? So progress happens when you show up repeatedly over time, okay? So an analogy that I like to use, okay, is think about compound interest. We all have heard how compound interest over time is the best, okay? When it specifically comes to stocks, okay? So this analogy is used in stocks. Compound interest will always be an approach where you're buying high and selling low, trying to time the market, okay? More time in the market is better, okay? So yeah, focus on being consistent with your exercises rather than just hopping from those exercises here and there, starting different exercises on a different day, then you're getting too tired, okay? Progress occurs when you are always showing up consistently. Next up on the framework is thinking and focusing on load exposure, okay? You've probably heard me speak about it. You've probably seen it countless of times on social media. Rest is not always best when it comes to an exercise and rehabbing an injury, okay? If we have a little bit of a pain, etc., rest has a perfect time and place for it. But once that tissue healing phase is begun and that protection phase, we need to start exposing our body back to load, okay? Appropriate load builds capacity. Avoiding load just protects symptoms, okay? So for example, we all know if we are going to the gym, we need to do exercises to get bigger, stronger, and healthier, okay? Our muscles will adapt. I've been saying in this video, our muscles will adapt to the stress that we place upon them. However, if I just avoid doing any exercises, I'm not going to expect to get like Ronnie Coleman, okay? Think of these two as glasses. We need to expose the body. So it's a little glass of filling up with water. If more water goes in, okay, we're going to need a bigger glass, okay? That famous line, I think it's from Italian Job, isn't it? Or something like that. We're going to need a bigger boat. I could be butchering that, but I've never even watched Italian Job all the way through, so apologies for you Italian Job fanatics. However, we're going to need another bigger glass to be able to handle all of the water and or be able to handle the load that we're placing in it, okay? Too much load, okay, then we are going to have issues. But we need to get the load management right, but we need to expose the body to load. If we just focus on avoiding load, okay, so the water, and we just put a lid on it, yes, no water's going to get in, but capacity decreases, okay? So for example, over 10 weeks, someone with knee pain, okay, if we are looking to increase their tissue capacity so they can do more at the end of 10 weeks, we're going to be giving them exercises. But if someone who with knee pain just doesn't do it, after 10 weeks, if they go back to doing like a 10 rep max barbell squat, they've lost strength in their knees and they're probably going to flare up their injury. They're going to get in that situation, that cycle of pain, rest, flare up, go back to their sport, flare it up again, rest. Every time we do that, our capacity decreases, okay? So in order for us to be able to increase our tissue capacity, we need to be exposing our body and our irritated areas to load over time. And then last off on the framework is patience, okay? We can't rush biology. Week 1, week 3, week 6, week 12, if we are following that structured plan where the exercise selection is bang on, okay? We are progressing over time. We are being consistent and we are exposing our body and our irritated load or need to load over time. The adaptation will happen. However, it takes time, okay? Tissue healing sites, so for example, muscles, bones, ligaments, etc., nerves, they all vary in their recovery rate, and it also depends on the severity. So for example, you might have a muscle strain, you might have a grade 1 muscle strain compared to a grade 3 muscle strain, okay? The more severe the injury, it's going to take a little bit longer, okay? We need to go through different phases of rehab and they're going to take a little bit longer. and you can't rush biology, okay? You can't expect to water your plant within 2 weeks and expect a tree to grow. Bit of a dodgy looking, like again, my art is not the best, okay? And that's where the misconception goes wrong, okay? And like I said earlier in the video, people just focus on trying to find the best perfect exercise, okay? When they don't see results after 1 week, then they'll go on to a different exercise and a different plan. And all this hopping, all that's going to be doing is not only just confusing you, you're going to lose motivation and adherence, okay? And you're going to not be able to be consistent anyway, hence why everything just drops and your pain just gets more and more and your capacity over time decreases. So it doesn't take too much to be able to actually flare you up, okay? So like I said, you can't rush biology. We need to focus on being patient. However, I always try to get those small little wins. When we can get small little wins early on in rehab, that will help your adherence and it will help your motivation so we can stay patient, okay? Especially if you have had a very long, frustrating journey working with a physiotherapist who's been giving you the wrong exercises, who's been getting you to do way too much too soon, and they're giving you the wrong information. As soon as you work with another physiotherapist, you're going to be a bit on the back foot, okay? And you want to get those early wins. So if we can get those early wins quite early on and on doors, we can start building that trust and trusting the process and trusting the journey so we can be patient and wait for the results to happen. And there we go. Just like that, the video's done, okay? If you got this far and made it to the end, I appreciate you, okay? This is a new setup. I'm gonna be doing a little bit more long form content, okay? New setup, we've got the light, the whiteboard. This light is absolutely, so hot in here and I feel like I got a right dab on, okay? I'm sweating out. But hopefully this has helped. Hopefully giving you that framework has really helped you to understand that it's not about collecting random exercises and hopping from here and there and everywhere. It's about starting to build a process for your rehab and starting to trust that process and being consistent with it and exposing your body and your exercise or your irritated, injured area to more load over time, okay? So hopefully that has helped. If you feel like you want to work with myself rather than you take all of that, what we've spoke about, and try and have all that stress of doing it yourself, or you feel like you're not making any progress with your physios or anyone else, and you feel like you want to work with myself, drop into that description box, shoot me an inquiry, I'll get back to you and explain what that service of the online one-to-one rehab and coaching service looks like. If you were looking for ready-made programs, again, it's going to be in the description box. You can go away and start working on an instantly accessible program for your issue. And in the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.